So these two microphones do look a lot alike, but they're also nothing alike. So how close do you think they're going to sound? Well, I can tell you this, despite being close in price, the difference between these two microphones is pretty big. You're going to want to see this review. Honestly, though, I just bought it for the miniature suitcase. I mean, it does make for a badass way to pack your toiletries. My toiletries are in here. Now, initially, I wanted to just buy all the Perception series of microphones from AKG, throw them in a pile, and find out which one is the best. Which one was the best value. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be the fairest way to evaluate these microphones, especially individually. So I'm slowly going to do the reviews, comparing each with the last few in line. Yes, I will be going all the way up to the P840, not sure how that comparison's going to go, considering it's nothing like the rest of the lineup. That said, though, I mean, these two aren't really that much alike either. But you know, it's all in the name of research, right? Okay then, so this is the AKG P220. And while it does share a lot of the physicality with the P120, it is a very different microphone, all the way down to the capsule. But before we get into the specs, let's take a look at the build quality of this thing. First up, one of the biggest differences between this microphone and the P120 is the shock mount, which, if you want, it's interchangeable with the P120. If you really wanted to change them out, you can. The shock mount is an all-metal design, and speaking of design, this is the classic one. You can't go wrong with it, though if you don't like the big chunky shock mount in front of you, this is almost too big. But it's not as bad as the Worker Bee. Gonna have to give it credit for that. All in all, the shock mount is delightfully built. And honestly, it's only a bonus at this price. Just the price differential would make you think that this is the reasoning behind the increase between the P120 and the P220. But no, as I said before, yes, they do look alike aside from the grill color. Now, the grill does seem a little bit thicker on the 220, though if you take a really close look, I don't think so. It just kind of seems that way because of the coloring. Otherwise, though, the shells look almost exact, but more on that in just a few. Now, the physical differences don't actually end there, but they are on the inside of the mic, as you can see when you take them apart. The P120 has a very simplistic board with a few caps and not much else of significance. However, the P220, something is literally standing out, and that is a transformer. The integrated circuitry is also something to notice, as well as it looks a bit beefier and perhaps a bit more premium. I'm not saying it's going to be top of the market, but this is the kind of stuff that can really impact the noise level on the microphone. And while we're talking about noise, let's dig into the specs of this mic. You can see with the side-by-side how similar these mics are, but not quite exact. And now we can see that the differences in the shells are, well, they're actually minute, but they are there. Both microphones are 20 Hz to 20 kHz, and both have that boost on the highs, though the P120 is a bit more pronounced and a bit more harsh of a curve. The P120 also dips in the lows around the 200 Hz zone, while the P220 has a bit of a boost around 50 Hz, so that bass roll-off might actually come in rather handy. You can also see that the P220 is quite a bit more sensitive as well, and by quite the margin, and that's probably due to the transformer inside. Now, the pad also gives the SPL a bit of a boost as well on this one, and the capsule is a bit bigger. Equivalent noise level is also much lower at 16 dBA weighted compared to the P120 at 19 dBA weighted. Signal to noise ratio is 78 dBA weighted for the P220 and 70 dBA weighted for the P120. Now, don't get me wrong, neither is great, but the P220 definitely does have the edge there. And lastly, the bass filter is a bit more aggressive, attenuating 12 dB per octave, opposed to the 7 dB per octave for the P120. So then, what do all those specs tell you? Well, there's just a bit more refinement in this microphone. And still, rather impressed at the price differential between the two of them. It's only $40. I can only imagine when I finally sit down with the P420 how much more refined it's going to be than the 220. Now, if you want to see that, make sure you hit like, get subscribed, so you don't miss anything. This is the off-axis rejection test of the P220. This is me speaking directly into the capsule from about 6 inches away. Now I'm speaking into the capsule from the side about 6 inches away. Now I'm speaking into the rear of the capsule from about 6 inches away. And now I'm speaking into the other side of the capsule from about 6 inches away. Now for a plosive test of the AKG P220. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. I can't imagine that's going to be good. I was popping on it last night on the live stream, so. This is the proximity test for the AKG P220. This is my voice at about 1 inch away. This is my voice at about 6 inches away. 1 inch away, 6 inches away. 1 inch away, 6 inches away. Here's a test of the high pass filter on the mic. This is the AKG P220 with the high pass filter enabled. This is the AKG P220 with the high pass filter disabled. High pass filter enabled. High pass filter disabled. Now we're going to take a look at the pad. This is, of course, the AKG P220 with the pad disabled. And this is the AKG P220 with the pad enabled. This is the AKG P220, once again, with the pad disabled. This is the AKG P220 with the pad enabled. And now we have a side-by-side comparison of the AKG P120 versus the AKG P220. Now, with all that we've learned about the differences between these two microphones, you should be able to pick up the difference of the sound of the P120 versus the P240. These both have slightly different gain levels because the P220 does have that transformer, so it's going to have a little bit more output. But what do you think the differences are on my voice? This, once again, is the P420, and this, once again, is the P120. $40 in between these two microphones. And on the surface, all you get is a shock mount. What do you think? Yeah, there's not much doubt about this mic. Larger capsule offers smoother and fuller sounds, a bit hotter and more sensitive than the P120. And I kind of like the sound more as well. It is a bit bright. If you're a sibilant speaker, keep that in mind, though it can be controlled with EQ. That said, pretty smooth throughout the low and mids, and honestly, with the exception of the boost and the highs, it's a pretty even mic. Now, all that said, AKG markets this as more of an instrument microphone. So if you're miking an acoustic and you want something with a bit of punch, this might be your huckleberry. All in all, it's a $40 difference between it and the P120. Now, if you're wondering which one to pick up, I think this is going to be a lot easier for multiple sources. That full condenser capsule should offer you a bit more and with a bit less noise. That just might make this the microphone for you. Now, with all that said, do not dismiss the P120. If you're strapped for cash, the P120 is a hell of a microphone, and $40 is, well, $40. Now, if you're just waiting to see how the P420 fares, make sure you get subscribed. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and you haven't seen it yet, go check out my review of the P120. It paints a picture. Trust me. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.